Hey, I'm Ariana Rodriguez, a systems specialist for agency owners rooted in equitable, intersectional, and sustainable business practices. This podcast shares the stories of agency owners like you who have gone from bootstrapping solopreneurs to empowered CEOs. They've been where you are, and each week you'll hear how we created systems that support their brains and businesses to get them where they are today. This is Stories of Scaling. Welcome to the party. If your hires aren't helpful, this is why. I know a lot of the secrets and behind the scenes of scaling agencies, and so many come to me whispering that the people that they hired are completely unhelpful. They thought that bringing in that contractor or that employee would make their life so much easier, but now it's just more back and forth. And without fail, I have to explain that if your hires aren't helpful, it's not because your people suck, it's not because everyone is out to get you, and it's not because no one can do it like you. So in this episode, I'm going to break down how to avoid the most common mistakes small business CEOs make when hiring a new team member. So let's start with the first mistake CEOs make that leads to unhelpful hires. A lot of CEOs don't know what tasks need to be taken over and in what order. What tasks are slipping through the cracks or creating a bottleneck in your systems? Is it an admin task? Is it a client delivery task? Is it a marketing task? You need to understand where you have a gap in your business before hiring someone to try to fill it. If you were hiring a construction crew to repair a wall, it's best to know exactly where the hole is before bringing them in to start patching. You also need to rank those tasks in order of importance. I know that as a CEO, you're busy and you want to get all that shit off your plate, but you need to hire in the order of importance. You cannot base your hires off the tasks that annoy you either. I know that we've all seen those graphics on Instagram telling you to hire a designer or social media manager right away if you hate sitting in on Canva. But I'm here to tell you to slow down and ask yourself what's going to be the best way to optimize your business for growth rather than just for comfort. For example, I have a client who works in production, and she noticed that she was at capacity with her week-to-week schedule. So her instinct was to hire a virtual assistant for the little tasks like email and social posts because they're annoying. Especially because she was overwhelmed, it was totally normal for her to want those frustrating tasks taken care of first. However, that was not what her business needed to optimize to scale. After taking the time to map out her operation, we could see what tasks were more important for her client experience and overall growth. She realized that bringing on an editor would be the hire that made the most sense. Editing is a high-lift task that's essential to her business operations and was more important to cover than the small admin tasks. So this hire will actually open her up to take on more clients without always reaching her max capacity. It is so important to understand the tasks you need taken care of to choose the right tasks to hire for. If you don't, you will find yourself still overwhelmed and looking at your team sideways. Here's a second mistake small business CEOs make when hiring: not giving team members the information they need to do their new jobs. A CEO might bring in a team member and expect them to hit the ground running, but instead they got an inbox flooded with questions and a bunch of mistakes with the final project. That might lead the CEO to say, wow, that hire sucks, and can't figure it out. But when you point a finger, three are pointing back at you. That hire wasn't given the right information and training to tackle their role. Without standard operating procedures or SOPs, walkthroughs, and training, hires won't perform the way a CEO expects them to. To avoid this mistake, make sure you have expectations and processes mapped out to share with your hire during their onboarding training. Even if someone has plenty of experience in similar roles, it doesn't mean that they know how you want things done. That mismatch of expectations is what leads to hundreds of questions and mistakes. So let's say, for example, a CEO hires a virtual assistant to help with onboarding new client projects. In their mind, it's clear that the new VA needs to make sure invoices and contracts are sent and followed up on if needed. The CEO also wants them to add the project to a project management software and update any automation. Simple enough, right? Well, it can be if that CEO tells them exactly what CRM to use, where to find the invoices and contracts, and how to do the follow-up. If they don't, of course, the VA is going to have questions and or miss things altogether. That mismatch of expectation goes for less technical tasks too. CEOs have to set up their hires for success from the beginning. Let's say there's a coach with a group program. They brought in a co-coach with previous coaching experience. They even made sure to hire a previous student of theirs, since it meant that they already knew the processes. That head coach expected them to jump into the community channel and group calls right away. But a few weeks into it, they start hearing clients share that the difference in coaching is confusing them. And while the co-coach is using the same words, the way they're applying the coaching is very different. Now, the head coach could blame the co-coach and say that they just weren't a good hire or weren't actually qualified, or they could look at their internal processes and training. If that head coach didn't walk them through exactly how to approach certain questions, where to look for answers, and when to come for help, that co-coach was not set up for success. The head coach's framework most likely comes naturally to them and can seem obvious. And it's those instances that training becomes even more important. So to avoid this mistake, take the time to document your workflow and processes. Write the standard operating procedures. Then review them to make sure that they make sense to someone outside your business. And no, a 10-minute Loom video of you sort of sharing it doesn't count as an SOP. So this can be really tedious at first, and it can feel super time consuming, but it's worth it, I promise. If you're worried your systems are too scattered to write a standard anything, don't worry. AR & Co can clean those up and make sure that you have optimized systems before you go and hire. So now, the third mistake small business CEOs make with hires is an offshoot of the second mistake. They aren't allowing their hires to be independent. The new team member has to consult the CEO about every little thing. And this means that they hired a doer, but the CEO still spends all of their energy telling them what to do and how to do it. Then they have to double check the work. This is a classic micromanager scenario. It's time-consuming for the CEO and frustrating for the team members. And the reason I said this is an offshoot of the previous mistake is that it also comes from a lack of training and SOPs. If a CEO doesn't take the time to communicate how they need things done and what the best way to approach doing it is, that hire will not know how to do it right. The best way you can avoid this is by once again making sure your SOPs are clear. In the SOP, you want to guide your team members on how to approach the tasks, what to do if they get stuck, and what the key milestones are in the process. When putting together these SOPs, I especially want you to ask yourself, how do I want this person to update me on the progress? And what does done look like? By doing this, it will be clearer when you want them to make their own decisions on things and when to bring you in. That team member will also have a better sense of what your standards are for each task. So let's get back to that client I mentioned in the beginning who is bringing on an editor for her business. She does not want to be breathing down the editor's neck every time she sends a video for editing. She also doesn't want to look at the super duper rough drafts of a project. But she does want to do a checkpoint before any text or effects get added to the video. So that means that she needs to trust her editor to understand the video and make initial decisions about what to cut. She also needs the editor to send her a draft without her having to ask for the status. What she did before even looking for this person is come to us to map out the processes, look for inefficiencies, and then fix those, and then turn them into SOPs. In that SOP, she listed out what initial edits should consist of across the board. She also explained what to do if there's an editing decision that is unclear for the editor to make without input. Now, this is all about setting up her editor for success and easy communication. In her training, she explained all of the checkpoints and how to navigate them. This keeps the CEO from being a micromanager who asks for updates all of the time. It also makes sure that the final result is up to her standards without creating extra work. So before you jump to blaming new team members for not being as helpful as you wanted, remember these 3 mistakes. The mistakes are 1, not knowing what tasks actually need to be taken care of. 2, not giving hires clear steps and expectations. And 3, not setting hires up to be independent. You can avoid all 3 and more by having a clear understanding of your business's processes and documenting them through SOPs. And you don't have to manage this alone. We help agency owners build efficient teams through systems, processes, and tech all day long. So book a call with me to discuss a Systems Mecánica or Jefe de Tecnología package so you can help your team actually help you. When we work together, we map out your offers and processes while discussing roles and responsibilities. We talk about the kind of work environment you want to create, then put the right systems, SOPs, and processes in place so your hire is set up for success and can actually be helpful. So head to the show notes for more. Nos vemos. Thanks for hanging with me today. It would mean a lot to me if you would review the show on your favorite podcast platform. It helps the show get in front of more agency owners that need it. Nos vemos.